Welcome back to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World, our 2022 conference. Our next topic is entitled The New Analytics of Long-Term Family Wealth. We're joined now by John Messervey. John is the private advisor to America's leading families, and he is the founder and the CEO of the National Family Business Council. Tremendous. John, thank you. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here. Look forward to your presentation. Yeah, look forward to your presentation. Let me hand it off to you. I see your slides. It looks like we're ready to go. And then I'll join you on the back side, okay?
Terrific. This is a presentation about something near and dear to my heart. I've worked with about 450 high net worth families, all of them, of course, starting as entrepreneurs. And I've probably had, and this is on the back of an airplane envelope, about 10,000 highly personal interviews with entrepreneurs and their families. So what you're about to see is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And this is the second time of the conference last week that I've showed this to people. I've been concerned because we've been kind of inundated by academic views of entrepreneurs or family businesses. That turkey has been pretty well picked clean by Sunday after Thanksgiving. So let's talk about what really matters to these families. Well, now we have this new movement of the 100-year family business. Well, my goodness, I can't think of a worse forced march. Your child has a better chance of getting in the NBA than that happening to your family business. And if it does, think of all the opportunities you've missed and think of all the investments you could have made that you haven't made. So what are we really after? And this is a discussion that you may want to have with your wife or your family or your parents or your children about what's the output for the long-term goal, not just wealth, because I have plenty of unhappy, wealthy clients, plenty of clients that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions, I don't care. And they struggle with this. So I wanted to say, we want family members that have their own identity, or in the bigger word, this individuation process that has to happen. And that doesn't mean that they want to necessarily be in the family business forever. It may mean that they're in it for part of it. They certainly shouldn't be in it as an employer of last resort or a place to find themselves before they grow up. We know the girls are winning right now. They're more planful, they're more focused, they're more driven. They have career paths. The young men are in their basement playing video games. I mean, literally, too many young men are in their 20s sitting in their waiting room of life. So we need to get going on that. Second, we really want to celebrate competence and build confidence in the next generation. Putting them in a job, unlike Tommy Boy, Chris Farley as the assistant to the president immediately after 7 years of college, isn't a career path. So we want to build confidence and build what I would call little victories and short-term wins. I learned many years ago when I studied motivation theory that motivation does not lead to achievement. It's actually the arrow goes the other way. Achievement leads to motivation. So what we want short-term wins and little victories that can propel some momentum for a confidence-building life. Third, I want to see that there's always trust. If I think of one thing that can derail a family business in 5 years or 50, it's a break of trust, or it is improprieties or even appearances of improprieties that cause this problem. And then lastly, I want to say the appropriate exit lanes for every style of, or every size of the family tree. You have to prune the tree at each generation and give people an opportunity to get off the train. Just sitting there holding stock and not participating usually is the biggest cause of lack of communication and transparency that I see in family business. So I'm going to make the case today that instead of driving a long train of 100 years of a family-owned business, what we really want to do is work toward diversification. And I love this phrase. I saw it the other day on the internet. It just caught me. If you're an entrepreneur, did it alone, did it broke, did it tired, did it scared? And that origin of an entrepreneur, we have studied here at NFBC for 40 years. You know, in the old days, if I can call them that, Daniel Goleman's famous article about the psychology of entrepreneurs in the New York Times was about how the son was trying to outdo the father or the daughter outdoing the father. And that's morphed into now in Silicon Valley, Austin, other places all over Chicago in 1871 and many other cities. It's, I want to change the world. It's not just I want to be wealthy, that's part of it, but I want to change the world. And so this arc of entrepreneurship has clearly changed. What I see in family business is these three curves that I look at. And that's the path that families are on. And if you understand the path, you can make better choices. So one part of my job is to remove the family obstacles from wealth creation and continuity. Another part of it is to show them not only their history and how it plays out as a family, but also where the path goes. So take the first starting point on the lower left of this graph. The starting point of an entrepreneur is most start out broke and unemployed. Most start out, maybe they got fired. Maybe they came home one day and said to their wife, with this actually happened, 7 kids and 1 in the oven, I quit my job, I'm going to go into business for myself. That's a pretty traumatic Friday afternoon. So that starting point is basically around control. And entrepreneurs would have a tough time working for IBM or Boeing. They would have a much better time in the land they can control. Curiously, and I'd like to see more research on this, in my study of entrepreneurs and my observations, I've seen entrepreneurs who basically had an out of control childhood or some out of control event in their childhood. Not long ago, I sat down with a $1 billion operation, and the first thing the CEO said out of his mouth was, and the owner, founder, was, my mother died when I was 1. And there's all kinds of other trauma, the death of a sibling, alcoholism, abuse, whatever it is. So the entrepreneur needs to go from the family out of control to the land of in control. Now, that is not true of all entrepreneurs, not at all. But it is true often enough to take note and understand that, because that's the roots of control. Now, that's control is fine in that first stage where it's entrepreneurially driven, where you're making it just every day. You know, it's pretty tough. You got to make it up, make it or break it. And you got a lot of tough choices to make. The airplane can fly pretty close to the ground some nights. But at some point you survive. However, that next stage, which is a pretty ragged stage, that first transition, is one where it's really difficult to start adding professional managers and start growing. Growth is expensive. You got to borrow money. You've got to put more CapEx out. You've got to start making decisions about a wider branch. Your more competitors now notice you, and your life is much more challenging. On the other hand, because you spent a lot of time at the company, your children right now might be acting out from an absent father or mother, and you've got that issue as well, and 10 more we could talk about. And on the other side, hiring professional managers, well, they would like to have some say in how the company is run, of course, if you want them to do their job well, but you've got to let that go. Now that's the next change where we head into the second phase. So the entrepreneurial phase is control of all aspects of the enterprise, managing abundant risk, financial close calls, a lot of hustle, which we'll come back to, and propelled by a considerable amount of optimism, what I call the dream, the entrepreneur's dream. And that is either very defined or rather loose, but it's there. And it's there in almost every entrepreneur that I see. So they're basically moving past the beyond survival stage. The next stage, the second stage is the succession drama. And this is the first time where dad or mom has to let go and head to God's waiting room, Florida, and play golf or work on his computer or read all the books he said he would never read or always wanted to read. So the questions become, is the next generation competent? And is the next generation committed? And have we prepared them? Or can they hit the pitching? And that question is very serious, because can suddenly a graduate pick even some of the best MBA programs, and some are no better than others, to say, okay, we're going to hand you the keys to an $80 million enterprise or a $200 million enterprise. I'm not sure that that's going to work. Then you also have in-laws. You have in-laws or outlaws. The hired gun gets played out. 7 traits of difficult families challenge. My sister-in-law just got a new Lexus, but we were driving the Toyota. Those little things start to creep into the mix. Envy, rivalries, and a need for entrepreneurial management expertise. So at some point, some fathers say, I worked hard so you wouldn't have to. And this is what I would call the beginning of the end. This is the end of focus and hustle and adaptation and competitiveness. And this is I beating my hairy chest that I've done it. And my children, even though I may have been, what would I say? One father said to me, or many have said actually, I was a good provider, but a lousy father, mostly because they were absent. I don't often necessarily think that's true. But in the second phase, the growth phase, off we go. And we're really feeling the financial needs of the company. There's more risk. It's a bigger stake in the game. There is recruiting talent. There is the entry of the next generation. There's a need to create a culture of performance. And then there's this old entrepreneurial culture that constantly needs to be renovated or renewed. As we move along from stage 2 to stage 3, now succession is with a much bigger pie, more added talent in non-family managers, more evaluation of family managers, some people that want to get off the bus, some people that are looking for where the company's really going. Do they have a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, or are they lost and they've lost their momentum and they're drifting down? So the rivalries accelerate, the professional advisors accelerate, and it may be time to prune the tree. So you can only, if I had a short title for this talk, it would be, do you want to harvest or do you want to keep hustling? And once you start harvesting your business, your family business, once you try to put it on autopilot, I suspect it's not going to stay on autopilot for long. I don't think it really can. So what's the next generation of those that want to hustle and really add those? And the ones that don't, really, you can't artificially employ people by pounding round pegs in square holes. They just don't fit. And it's better. Some days I have to say things to other family members that really a family member probably shouldn't say, including the competency question, et cetera. If an uncle says my nephew isn't really competent, that gets etched in granite in the family business. If I say it, well, I'm just an outsider and can be forgiven or forgotten, I hope. So another question I ask at this stage is, let's imagine right now it's 2032 and you own this family business and you're looking back and you're saying, wow, what were the decisions we should have made in 2022 to be in a better place right now? I have clients right now that I don't think their company is going to be viable in 10 years because of the acceleration of technology, the changing markets, the globalization that will be off and then back on again, et cetera. So those are questions that at least need to be asked. I know that's a big, tough question, but that at least needs to be asked. And then you end up in a stage 3, 1, 2, 3, a stage 3. Now you're a firm operation, you're a big player, you're either number 1 or number 2 in the operation, in the market, in the situation. And you have a tough call because you're getting letters every day from spray and pray brokers that say, I got a buyer for you, et cetera. But it does ask the question, do you want to have a serious hold, sell discussion? Do you want to liquefy some of your positions, or do you want to diversify? And the heart of this talk today is about the family business diversifying into a platform operation where they diversify their platform so that they can balance their risk. It wouldn't be unlike rebalancing your portfolio in your financial investments, where you rebalance. So I've seen clients, they own one in retail, they own one in hospitality, one in real estate. Almost everybody's got something in real estate, and then one maybe in manufacturing, and they hire the talent to run that. So they answer the Peter Lynch question of what do you own and why do you own it? So I asked that question because you're constantly managing larger groups of familial expectations of performance. And if you're the CEO, family or non-family, you are constantly under a microscope. Why did he fly the corporate jet? Why didn't I fly the corporate jet? I've had many people tell me, all I want is a NetJets card. I get it. But we need to add these professional managers. They are hard to find. They're a special breed that can work for a family. They've got to have a career path. They've got to have assurances. They've got to have security. They've got to see the end game, and they've got to know that they're not going to get taken out if they're the right people. So what we're asking is adaptation and diversification. How do we do that? So the long path for wealth is never identical, but there are common themes. So what I'm asking is, this turning point right now is not the 100-year business that only a very few companies can ever exist. Much more likely that there is a constant shifting of ownership, of growth, of one family emerging. I've seen families. I recently had a family that had 4 blocks of a family tree, and then 3 bought out one, not too difficult, then 2 bought out the third, a little more difficult, and then when one buys out the other, that is a lot of drama and a lot of debt. So we have to make sure that's right. So building a team that knows how to address this diversity, asking the question of what do we own and why do we own it, determining who has the energy and the hustle to lead, and ask if our original legacy business is viable. And let's talk about that legacy business, because often the family cannot let go of a non-performing legacy business. Well, grandpa started it and grandma's still alive, or vice versa, and we can't sell it until they die. Well, that's it's like the old Jack Welch line. The best time to get rid of a company is when you said, well, we got about 5 more years left in that. Get rid of it. And that's a tough decision, but tough decisions have to be made if you're going to survive. And if you try to make decisions just to please people in a family setting, it's going to be difficult. You're going to need some outside help, some advisors who are going to give you some cover to be able to pull that off. So this opportunity, though, if you can sell off some of your family businesses and liquefy, what we call SLE, sudden liquidity event, you can liquefy. Now you can provide seed capital in your family office for next generation entrepreneurs to begin again. So you're replanting the field. You're saying, okay, you don't want to be making sausage in Chicago. How about med tech in Austin, Texas? That's what you really want to do. Or you love real estate and you love residential real estate. Let's, with a board of advisors, with a business plan, with a note on debt, et cetera, all the regular conditions that you would have as an entrepreneur, seed the funding of the next generation or that current generation into their new ventures. Then finally, the challenge becomes the platform business. How do you continue to find those diamonds in the rough, those great businesses? And that's why, one, you've got to start with a team of outsiders. You've got to network like crazy. You've got to make friends before you need them. You've got to keep your eyes open. As they say, you've got to sip a lot of coffee, and you've got to build a wide net and just keep dropping those hints that you're looking at that industry and you're looking to buy. And then you've got to add the best M&A team you can find. And this is a really powerful moment. This is a very exciting moment in the life of the family business when you start to pick off. I have one client that sold out their legacy business, and they now have 30 companies in all kinds of things. And they can do it only because they've got terrific non-family managers, super smart people. They admit that they don't have the answers to all the questions. So just think of what I just said. What I just said is so far from stage 3, from early entrepreneur control stage 1. They've gone through the transitions. They've gone through authoritative dictator almost management to consensus benevolent, where everybody in the family has a voice, where women are listened to, where women are paid attention to, and where their talents are certainly added because the women are winning. This also gives you some liquidity, and it gives you the luxury of timing. However, right now, and it pains me to say this, but wow, if some of these companies didn't add something in the last 10 years when interest rates were dirt cheap, and there's so many businesses that were out there that could be picked up. Now with interest rates higher, it's going to be a little higher price, but it's still a valid strategy. So I have some other lessons in long-term family wealth, but I will just say, we're good. If you want them, I can just email me at john@privatefamilyadvisor, SOR, privatefamilyadvisor.com, john@privatefamilyadvisor.com. And I'll be happy to send you the additional lessons. Apologize that my keyboard didn't work. For whatever reason, I can't explain it, but I hope I filled in the blanks.
Nice conversation, John. Nice talk. You could tell you've had over 10,000 interviews with entrepreneurs based on the quality of the insights and tips that you shared with our audience today. So thank you for that. I know it's not what you said towards the end was interesting with having capable managers in the business. Even though obviously Berkshire Hathaway is now a public company, that's always been Warren Buffett's model, right? When he acquires companies, is he looks for A, things he understands, and then B, he leaves in the quality. If they're doing a good job, he lets them run that business, right? And he lets
absolutely. Yeah, Warren is worth reading. I think a young person today reading Snowball and a few other things from Warren and Charlie Munger can get an MBA education in a very quick order. Certainly they can get an education in financial management.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We got a question came in here on the chat, John. Let me raise it here. It says, what are family offices? Whoops, it jumped off the screen.
I see it. Yeah,
you see it? All right, go ahead. Why don't you take it?
Well, what they're looking for right now is, I would say, diversification, but med tech is high. Certain types of real estate, of course, apartments and industrial buildings, and those are looked at. And they're looking at different cities. I don't think the back to work movement is we're not going to go back to driving 90 minutes from Lake Forest, Illinois, downtown Chicago every day. We're not going to do that. So it might be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but I think that the investments right now are in smaller, unique cities. Nashville's, bonzo. Boston, same thing. Everybody's there. But looking at Des Moines, looking at Indianapolis, looking at Columbus, Ohio, looking at the Carolinas, it tends to be the movement of South and West.
Hopefully, no, terrific. I've been to all of those places the last six or 7 years. One thing you had early on that I found interesting as well is that most entrepreneurs, there's that earlier in life kind of trauma, I guess, or event that winds up shaping somebody's outlook or puts them kind of on the path going forward. I've been doing some population and public health work the last number of months, and the CDC actually has a report out from a number of years ago that kind of talked about adverse childhood experiences and how that would affect the ongoing health and well-being of people, even down the line. So it's interesting from an entrepreneur standpoint that those types of experiences can help shape really what they become or where they go and their drive and hustle. I think that was pretty fascinating. And then your other point too, I think, was really, really interesting. The assumption that the next generation always wants to do that business isn't always a safe one to make, where all of a sudden you'll come back and then they come back and say, I really want to go do something else. And then
and Glenn, sometimes the problem is that they don't want to tell their father or mother that they don't want their life's work. And that's a difficult discussion that I facilitate or have many times, that I want to move to Denver and I want to, open a whatever ski shop and bike shop, whatever it is. And I don't want to work for dad's ball bearing plant. I mean, I just want to do that.
Years ago at a college event, family business function, I met the new CEO of the Jiffy Baking Company, who was actually a Formula One race car driver, but his brother, the heir apparent, didn't want to do it. So it was just kind of, and then so he kind of gave up the racing and kind of took over the company. So it's interesting.
We just had a great question.
I saw that. Go ahead, take it.
I think Steve said this transition from family member to an employee is difficult. You bet it is. And this is I'm really happy this question was asked. The transition, I skated through this, but about this individuation and identity, the family is not going to hold together unless young people can get to that stage where they have finished their identity of who am I? And so, we do a lot of work and project work, if I call it that, on guidelines for entry and exit of the family business. And many of them times you got to work elsewhere for 5, 6, 8, 10 years, get a job on your own, become economically self-sufficient, get at least one promotion, and then you'll be considered for if there's the right fit. And the right fit is not because mom doesn't want the children to leave town because we've now got grandchildren. Dad, can't you find Bob and Sarah something to do at the plant? I mean, that's not the right fit. And that's common, actually, more than I'd like to admit.
Great question. Great answer. Great answer. All right, listen, we're coming up here on the top of the hour. Thank you so much, John, for joining us today and sharing your insights in the National Family Business Council experiences. Outstanding presentation. We appreciate your contributions here to leading entrepreneurs of the world, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Enjoyed it. Yeah, Glenn, thank you for your help today.
Take good care.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, you bet.